This is the second part of the Inside-Out-Beanie head knitting tutorial, which was made in collaboration with the We Are Knitters team. If you want to know more about this set, just check out the links in the description box and have fun with this tutorial. I have knitted my piece now for 23 centimeters or 9 inches or 18 rows. We can start now with the decrease rounds, and it doesn't matter whether you're on the knit side or the purl side. So the first stitch, of course, is a starting stitch. And because I'm on the knit side, I will knit the stitches in this row and I will knit 2 together. If you would be on the purl side, you would of course purl the stitches and purl 2 together. And this is our first decrease row. So after your starting stitch, you will knit your first 2 stitches together. So insert your needle into both of them, get your working yarn from behind, and just knit them as one. As I said, if you would be on the purl side, you would of course now purl 2 together. So next come 2 regular knit stitches, and then again knit 2 together. So every third and fourth stitch of this row will be knit together. Repeat this until you get to the end of your row, and I'm going to show you how to finish this row in a second. I am at the end of my row, and depending on the number of stitches you have cast on, your ending might look different. The last stitch I've done was a knit 2 together, and I have 5 left now. If I would follow my pattern, now would come 2 regular knit stitches, then I would knit 2 together, and of course the last one I can make as an ending stitch. And this is just by accident a perfect ending for this row. If you would have only 4 left, for example, or even less, that's totally fine, don't worry. Just knit the remaining stitches regularly and the last one as an ending stitch, and don't follow your pattern anymore. It's perfectly fine. So I can end my row now. The last I've did was a knit 2 together. I will knit now 2 regular stitches, and I will end this with knit 2 together. It's great if you can do the same, and it's also great if you cannot. Just don't worry. The last stitch is an ending stitch. I can now turn my work. The next round is a break round. You don't do anything, you just make the back of your, depending on which side you are, I'm on a purl side, so I would just purl all of the stitches just like they are. If you would be on a knit side, you would of course knit this next round, and of course make a starting stitch at your beginning and an ending stitch at your end, and just knit or purl this round. Here is the finish of my break or pause round, where I've just made purl stitches all along. I finish it with an ending stitch, turn my work, and I am now in the second decrease round, and this is also the final row for the complete head. And the second decrease round is a bit different than the first decrease round. It starts with a starting stitch, of course, and the first 2 stitches again are knit together, or if you would be on the purl side, you would purl these together. Here comes the part that's a bit different. You no longer have 2 but only 1 regular stitch in between. So I have 1 regular stitch and 2 knit together. Every second and third stitch of this row are knit together till the end. And as you can see, my row ends now with 3 remaining stitches. The last I've done was a knit 2 together. So I can no longer end my pattern evenly. That's just fine. I will just knit these 2 remaining stitches as they are, and the last one I will make as an ending stitch. And to finish your work, just turn it after your last decrease round, and now you can cut very, very generously your working yarn, because I want to run it twice through all of the stitches, and I want to of course sew the ridges together with this yarn tail. So again, just leave a very generous piece of working yarn before you cut it. I would say around 1 meter or even more. And then you would pull the end of your yarn tail through your darning needle. I then take my knit piece into my left hand, and as you can see, the yarn tail comes out not of the last but from the second to last stitch, because the last one was a slip stitch, so we really need that yarn to come out of the last of the final stitch. Because of that, I just lead it through the last stitch before I do anything else. And now my yarn tail comes out of my final stitch, which is really important. You can then take your darning needle and you want to pull it through all of your stitches again, from the first to the last, from the left to the right side. You can take a couple of stitches at once, you can squeeze all of them together and pull your needle through all of the stitches, just whatever you prefer, whatever feels right to you. The important thing is keep your stitches on the needle. Here I am finishing up the last stitches, and now you're gonna do the same thing a second time. So you have your yarn tail pulled through all of the stitches on your needle once. You want to do this twice. So again, just pull your needle through all of them. This time I will try just to squeeze all of the stitches, and because my yarn is very soft and squeezable, I can do that. I use this technique to run my yarn tail twice through all of the stitches on every single head, and it works really fine. So you can just be sure that the hole on top of your head will not open. You can then now pull out your needle, you don't need that anymore. And then you pull out the purl side. You want to see the purl side when you sew together the ridges. Pull then on your yarn tail so that the final round with your last stitches gets really tight. And then make a knot or maybe 2 knots on the inside of your seam, so you cannot see it from any side when the hat is finished. Make the knot close to the place where the yarn tail comes out and try to really insert your needle inside the yarn. Don't pull your tail yarn completely, but leave a small loop where you can then lead your needle through. And this is how you set a knot. And maybe you want to do it a second time, just depends on how thick your yarn is. And now don't just sew the 2 pieces together, but first you need to even out your first row. And for that I take my corner stitches. You can see them very well here. That's the 2 little knot stitches. They seem like knots. I hold now my 2 edges very close together, and this is why we made the beginning and the ending stitch, so we have big stitches at the sides of our seams so we can see them very well. This is my first big stitch. You can use some tools to just keep it in line, that they are really beside each other, or you can make it just by counting, whatever you feel like. You don't need the tools, but it may help to just keep it even. And here I am just counting my seam stitches upwards. This was my second, this is my third, now comes the fourth. And because they are very big, you will see them really well. Maybe you need to roll the sides, the edges a bit outwards, because they always seem to roll inwards. And just keep on going until you're on top. And when you get to your final 2 stitches on top, you can fix them with your finger or with a little tool, or you can just make them a bit wider so you can see them clearly. And if you have any kind of loose stitch, like here, this is the ending stitch that was just a slip stitch. Because of that, it might be a bit big. Not to worry, just sew it in. You will not see this when the hat is finished anyway. So I'm just tightening up this one loose stitch, and now I can start with my first 2 big stitches. Here I just laid out the hat so I can see it more clearly. And start sewing on the opposite side from the place where your yarn tail comes out. Choose for your sewing a purl stitch that's as close as possible to your corner stitch, and insert your needle from the top. Pull your yarn through, but don't pull it too tight. My yarn tail is obviously very long, so this might take a few strokes until you get there. You want this sew stitch to look almost like a purl stitch, so that's why you don't pull it too tight. You then go on the same row or almost the same height on the other side. Again, choose a stitch that's as close as possible to your corner stitch. Go again from the top inside your purl stitch. And just do the same again. Pull your yarn tail, don't pull it too tight. You want it to fit seamlessly into the pattern of the head. Maybe you need to roll inwards the corners, the edges. Now before you go on, just roll out your edges and take a look at your corner stitches from the side. You will notice on every beginning of a corner stitch there's a purl stitch really close to it. So it's not the purl stitch in every single row, but in every other row. And I think you can see it really well, the one purl stitch that's right beside the beginning of every big corner stitch. I here pull out a few, and you will choose these purl stitches to sew together with the other side. And the same when you look at your at the other corner side, at the other edge side, you see again the same thing. There's a very close purl stitch to every beginning of your big corner stitches. So I last sewed into a purl stitch of the left side. Now I'm going to a purl stitch on the right side. Here you can see how I pull out the closest purl side to a beginning of a corner stitch, and again from the top you pull your needle and your yarn tail through. This might take a while since it's very long. That's okay, that's fine, that's how it's supposed to be. Again, don't pull it too tight. You want to fit it into the purl pattern of the rest of your head. Then you roll out your opposite side. Again, take a look, where's the beginning of a corner stitch, where's the purl stitch that's closest to it, and pull your needle from the top to the bottom. And here I am just repeating this process. I'm showing you again one less purl stitch before I skip to the end of it because it's boring. I know, it's just that you can be sure what I'm doing here and see clearly what I'm doing. And from now on, just repeat this and sew your two sides together until you get to the end. And you can see when it's finished, it's almost invisible. It's not completely invisible, but since this will be the back side anyway, you will not see it. And here you see I only need to sew together my final two corner stitches at the end. I turn my head so I can insert into them more easily, and I insert my needle right into this almost knot-like corner stitch, and the same on the other side, and just sew them together. I will repeat this once again so that they are really tight and firm. Now just pull your yarn tail a bit and you're almost finished, you're almost there. Just turn your beanie head again so that you can have a look both on the top of your first seam and on the inside. And finally you want to make a knot. Again, try not to make it on the inside or the outside, but make it right on the seam. So be close to the place where the yarn tail comes out. Again, don't pull it completely, leave a loop, pull there, your needle through, and there's your knot. And the final thing you need to do is, of course, work the rest of your yarn tail. We will cut it then, so it's much shorter, of course. You need to sew it inside your pattern. I lead it upwards a bit, and I want to sew it inside a knit row, not inside a purl row. So the first 3 rows were garter stitch. So when you spread your pattern, you will see between each purl row will be a knit row. Now the thing is, I've done it wrong in this tutorial, so don't do what I'm doing here. I'm sewing it inside a purl row. You don't want to do that, really. You want to do it inside a knit row. Again, this knit row is inside between 2 purl rows. And if you work your yarn tail into a knit row, into the first 4 or 5 stitches of a knit row, and really try to pull your needle inside the yarn, the rest of your yarn tail will not be visible from any side. Do the same thing with the other remaining yarn tail and you're finished. This is the head from the other side, this is the seam of the other side, and because we did not sew it very tightly together, you have a very nice, almost knit-like border there. It looks pretty, it's almost invisible, and your hat is finished. and your beanie hat is ready now. To complete your set with the quick loop, just click on the link in the window or check out the link in the description box. And be sure to look at the third part of this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Check out my channel for more English tutorials. There are more to come, I promise. And subscribe if you like this, and have fun knitting. Goodbye!